It's time to lock in. We're talking SEC, college football, and more. This is AP as we see it.
I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I said I'm all about that action.
I'm AP Stedham from LA, Lower Alabama. This is AP as we see it, a weekly syndicated show discussing the Southeastern Conference, keeping an eye on the national college football scene and other sports. Welcome to AP as we see it. And we'd like to remind people about our social media platforms. We're on the Facebook, Instagram, X account. We're also on the YouTube channels. We have the personal channels, AP as we see it. There's our show page and then at AP Stedham. So all our accounts are on our show pages or our personal account at AP Stedham. And then we're also on Spotify as well. And you can check that. And we're also on the radio stations across the Southeast. You can hear those on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, depending on the station. We would like to welcome everybody to the show. We have an outstanding guest this week. It's going to be Pat Bradley. And Pat is an SEC Network Basketball Analyst for the men's side. And Pat played at the University of Arkansas. He's a two-time All-SEC selection. So we're looking forward to that discussion in segment 2 and segment 3. But we're going to start off the show in segment 1 with the college football playoff changes. And we discussed it on the last week's show. It's kind of interesting within the conference because you're used to seeing the SEC championship game. But what might happen is they'll have a selection committee within the conference, an SEC selection committee, just like they do for the college football playoffs. And they'll pick the top 6 teams, let's say, maybe top 8, probably top 6. But you ask why? Why should they do those types of things? Well, when you have a conference of 16 teams, the strength of schedule for each team is really, it varies. Very much. So you're trying to come up with the 6 best teams, and maybe somebody was overloaded that year with a difficult schedule within the conference. And you can't project from year to year who will have the strong teams. You do the very best you can when trying to balance everyone's schedule within the conference. But with the transfer portal and the NIL, you can inherit a quarterback that changes the complexion of your team and the competitiveness of your team. And that can make a big difference. So it's it's a fluid situation where the conference can really not project as well as they could in the past to try to balance the schedule. So that's why I think that what you might see is this influx of a conference a champion is that's going to disappear as far as the game. You're going to have the top 6 teams, top 8 teams, and you're going to pick the top 4 teams. That's will be in the year 2026 when the SEC is projected to have 4 automatic qualifiers. Before we get moving, I'd like to mention our sponsors. I got ahead of myself here a little bit, but we want to mention our sponsors, Greer's Groceries, Greer's Markets. They're in 29 locations, Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi. And we remember that Lucy's famous recipes are online. Plus, she has a new book out, so you can check that out, buy it at the store, any one of the locations, plus online as well. And they have the groceries to go. That's the delivers to your home, your office, any venue. Remember, it's football, family, and friends. And now with this NCAA basketball tournament coming up and all these great teams out of the SEC on the men's and the women's side, you're probably going to have some parties coming up in the month of February and March and April to watch these basketball games from the SEC. Remember to look at the weekly specials online. Those are terrific. You have the Mardi Gras specials here in Mobile and other places, so check those as well. You have the coloring contest, monthly coloring contest for the children. And then there's also those special occasions, the holidays, the birthdays, the anniversaries, and you can buy your groceries at Greer's. And they have the fresh produce, the dinner essentials, the delicious food and snacks at unbeatable prices. And remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. So check out Greer's Markets in those 29 locations, Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi. Then we also want to mention Wind Creek Casinos, the 3 Alabama locations, Atmore, Montgomery, and Wetumpka. So you could sign up at any location and check out the amenities they have as well. You can sign up and be a player. but check out all the amenities at the 3 locations. They vary from location to location, but they all have the dining, you have the cinema, you can go to the movies, they have the matinees or visit at night. You have the spa, you have the bowling, you have live performances, the cooking school, they have different events at the amphitheater, the A-list concerts, the hotels. So there's fun for everyone. So check out the Wind Creek Casinos, the 3 Alabama locations, Alabama, in Alabama, Atmore, Montgomery, and Wetumpka. So let's just get back to that subject matter we broached earlier in the show about the college football playoffs. Yeah, I think that'll be fascinating to have a selection committee within a conference, because when you have 16 teams in the SEC, that schedule is going to be top heavy for somebody, and somebody will have an easier schedule. So you're trying to figure out the top 6 teams, and then you'll have number 3 play number 6, number 4 will play number 5, and that'll be on the day of the SEC championship game that was held past year. So it'll be probably that first weekend in December, and then that way you'll come up with the 4 qualifiers. You'll rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 and 2 obviously gets the bye, and then you'll have that 3 play the 6 and the 4 play the 5 to come up with your 4 automatic qualifiers. But that won't happen until 2026. And I do not foresee 2025 that they'll be having a true seeding. I think you're still going to stick with those 4 automatic qualifiers from the top 4 conferences, because that's a unanimous decision. So why would let's say the Big 12 or the ACC, why would they vote to reseed the whole affair? Because they weren't ranked in the top 4. So they want to keep that top 4 ranking with a bye, with an automatic qualifier, and that'll be at a neutral site. You don't have to be play at some of these other conferences. You won't have to play at their home location. So that's in their interest to just keep it as is, with the 4 automatic qualifiers, 1 through 12, with the college football playoff staying at 12 teams in 2025, moving to 14 or possibly 16 in 2026. So that takes care of the college football changes that I believe will be proposed and enacted for 2026. And I wonder if that committee, if that does happen in the SEC, will be 13 people, 6 people, 5 people. I wonder what the number would be. But I think that's the best way to get some partiality when you're selecting the top 6 teams of a conference, specifically the SEC. So now we want to drift over into the spring football. There's some spring football changes. People want to eliminate the spring football. They want to modify the spring football. I would say if I'm a program in the SEC, I want to keep some form or fashion of a spring game event. Maybe you don't compete against each other, but you have the fans come to your stadium where they can interact with the team, watch the team. And there's reasons for watching a spring game if you're a fan or a media member. Probably more for the fans, but you're looking at the speed of the players at all those positions: the wide receivers, the running backs, the defensive backs, linebackers, edge rushers, the quarterback. See if he can run, see how they maneuver in the backfield. Of course, they're not going to be touched. They wear the black jersey normally, but that's some of the reasons you watch a spring game. If I'm watching a spring game, the media has of the 15 practices, you get a chance, but I think it's something good for the fans because they're all excited. You keep that spirit humming through from spring to the summer, and it launches your season really. But you're going to have transfers that are going to come in after the spring game. And then the other thing that they're trying to eliminate the game is they don't want anyone watching the potential talent that will transfer. But I'm thinking in this day and age, how can you hide somebody? They're on film somewhere. So you're always looking at people's roster, whether they play a spring game or they don't. You're looking at the depth chart. I mean, these coaches are smart. They talk to each other. They talk to the high school coaches. They talk to the parents. I mean, whether it's tampering or not, there's communication ongoing with a player from year to year. And if they're not satisfied, they're satisfied. Where are they on the depth chart? So this idea that you're going to hide somebody, I really don't buy it. But the other reason, they don't want an injury. I fully understand that position, that you don't want to have somebody get injured in a spring game that is meaningless, really. It's just a showcase of your talent and a way to connect with fans. So I think if I was a school, I'd have some event for the fans and the alumni to connect with the team. I wouldn't miss that opportunity. You know, you're trying to sell more season tickets. There's a number of reasons. You're promoting your team, and it's still a good opportunity. If you want to eliminate the game portion of it, the live full speed game I understand and I can live with it. Maybe you run some drills. Like I said, you can have the players showcased and the fans and the alumni, they get to watch the receivers catch the ball, the running backs elude defenders, the edge rushers, even though it's a vanilla type situation, that you can see if you have somebody that can rush the passer, which is always important. So I think there's a reason to have some type of drills in the spring so your fans and your alumni can view your team and you can have that excitement grow when they watch them in the spring, and they can't wait till the opening games. If there's some sensational freshman that they had a chance to see, or somebody was redshirted that didn't get an opportunity, but there's always a good reason for your team to be viewed by the fans and the alumni, and also the media. And also the media, you generate that excitement, and the polls will be coming out prior to this. Preseason polls will be coming out. So I just think it's an opportunity. You look at the kicker, you look at the punter. But anyhow, those are some of the reasons I believe they should have a spring type of event for the fans and the alumni. But anyhow, we're going to be right back after these messages with our guests for segment 2 and 3. That's Pat Bradley, the SEC Network men's basketball analyst. So we'll be right back after these messages with AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use groceries to go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. And we're back with AP as we see it. We have a very special guest, Pat Bradley, two-time All-SEC selection, University of Arkansas, the pride of Everett, Massachusetts. Crimson Tide, I think, Pat. I think that's Crimson Tide up there in Everett, Massachusetts. But played for Nolan Richardson. We'd like to welcome Pat Bradley, SEC Network men's basketball analyst, to AP as we see it. Hey, Pat.
Hey, good to see AP. Thanks for having me. Yes, it was the Everett High School team didn't have a nickname or anything. So at the time, back in whenever it was, when Alabama football was rolling, they sort of took over the same thing, Crimson Tide. Let's roll. Let's roll, Tide, roll.
That's
So we
incredible. You
actually
got a
have
little.
we have a big wave painted on the wall in the
Okay.
basketball gym. Yeah. No, we don't have
I
an
love it.
elephant. We don't have an elephant. We get a wave.
Right. Right. You had a touch of the SEC before you arrived. That's pretty cool. Pretty
That's
cool.
right.
But hey, Pat, you watch this SEC basketball play there. Do you have maybe the top 4 teams right now currently? Would you pick out 4 teams in the SEC?
Well, you got to go with Auburn. Auburn is about
Absolutely.
as good of a team as I've seen. I just did Florida's game last night. Although Georgia got them, Florida has got everything. They've got size at every position. They've got shooting, toughness, speed, you name it. And Alabama is is right there as well.
Yes.
And we all know. I mean, we've been watching Alabama, and I think I would put Tennessee. It's right there for me. It's like Tennessee, Texas A&M,
I see.
and
Yep.
the thing that I see in those 4 or 5 teams,
Yes.
they all brought back a core. Like that's not a coincidence that they brought back the core of guys and they're
Right.
not hurt.
Right.
So that's where I would start with those. If I could have, you know, go Texas and just give them a little credit for what they've been doing.
Right. We got the starting 5.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, Pat, what's the surprise team of the year? Is there a surprise 1 or 2 teams in the SEC?
So I mean, I know a lot of people will point to Missouri.
Yes.
But that's not a surprise to me. That's not a surprise to me. Last year was a surprise to me. I've got great
Right.
respect. Dennis Gates brought back a good core of guys with Tamar Bates, Anthony Robinson, and he added some great transfers. Mark Mitchell from Duke, and don't forget Caleb Grill, who's actually transferred 2 years ago, but he was hurt, last year and a lot of this year. So
Yeah.
I mean, people will point to Missouri because of last year's result, but to me, this isn't a surprise, right? Um,
Yes.
I would, the logical one, it would seem to me, would be Vanderbilt and what Coach Mark Byington's doing, just because year
Mhm.
one,
Yeah.
I think he brought back one guy. Um, And for him to really not know what he had in year one at Vanderbilt, when it's different. Like, I know I got the Kentucky Blue on right now, and Coach Mark Pope, same thing. He didn't have anybody come
Yes.
back on his roster, and he's got a top 15 team or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a different scenario, different situation, because when you have a coach that is relieved of his duties, like at Vanderbilt, and you take over, it's a sort of a different thing you're stepping into, as opposed to maybe somebody who willingly leaves and he's not. Coach Byington's walking into that type of situation. So for him to kind of not know what he's got, like I said, and then to bring everything together, and it's funny. I mean, he's probably still. I did a couple of their games, so getting a chance to talk to him
Right.
about what it takes in this league, and he says he looks around the league and he just says, I can't believe the amount of energy you have to sustain throughout the season to be successful. And he points to guys like Coach Calipari, who've been doing it for since I was in high school. Okay, before that, Cal's been in
Right.
it for 5 decades.
That's right.
Uh, he was at UMass, obviously in the late '80s, and um, but so I would say the expectation of a guy in year one
Mm.
and a situation that you're going to is, I mean, you gotta say that's probably Vandy.
Vanderbilt, right? Yeah, that tough situation falling in after the coach was relieved. Sure. Kentucky, they're going to get good eventually, if not this year,
Yeah.
and he's done very well, Mark Pope, of course. But is there any team, most intriguing team? You look at all these 16 teams now, Oklahoma, Texas comes aboard, somebody that it catches your eye that's, hey, that team's kind of intriguing. We're going to watch them in the tournament.
So I think you look at, we talked about Missouri, and I
Yes.
think they are certainly flying under the radar. Mississippi State, a team that, I mean, it's just they've like, another team that has brought back their core: Josh Hubbard, Cam Matthews, Keyshawn Murphy, those guys that played
Yeah.
some big minutes for Coach Jans. So I'm looking at like a team like Missouri because it's so difficult to play against. It's organized chaos. So you go
Right.
into a tournament situation. How do you prepare for that? How do you prepare for that? It's very difficult. For the 40 minutes of hell, which I played in. You know,
Right.
you force people to play a way in a style that is very uncomfortable for them. Missouri
Mhm.
does that. Texas A&M does that with their switching defenses, and Texas A&M is another team that's flying under the radar, flying under the
Mhm.
radar. Because
Mhm.
a lot of times they don't win pretty. They don't win pretty,
No.
but that's fine. Like my old coach, Coach Nolan Richardson would say, I would rather a raggedy ride than a smooth walk. You know, an
Yeah.
ugly win is better than a pretty loss any day. So, I look at those teams, and in any other league, people would be talking about those teams like on a weekly basis, but it's just, in the SEC, um, you know, there's only so much oxygen, right, in the room that you could talk about teams, and
Yes.
we're always talking about sort of those top 4 or 5 teams, rightfully so, because they're all top 10 teams.
Highly competitive. Pat, I was just going to mention to you, I covered Nolan Richardson, his induction at the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of
Oh,
Fame.
did you
Yeah,
really? I was
I was
sorry
there.
I missed that. That was a great speech. It was,
Yes.
coach knows how to rally a room. That's for
He,
sure.
he does, yeah. He's a dynamic personality. What lured you to Arkansas, Pat? Had you ever been to the state?
I had never been there. Played in a couple of AU tournaments in Tennessee, Louisiana,
Right.
um, and I was when I was getting. I got it was after in summer of my junior year. We were playing in an AU tournament in Wake Forest, out in North Carolina,
Right.
and Coach Richardson was there, and all the coaches were there. And that particular tournament was a huge tournament. We If you won, you kept playing on the main court.
I
And
see.
so coaches, Coach Richardson, Coach K, Coach Behan, all those guys, they didn't want to walk around to the auxiliary gym. They wanted to stay on the main court. So
Right. Yeah.
fortunately for me, we're playing against like the Tennessee Travelers with Ron Mercer's on the team. So all the coaches. So, you have a couple good games against the top recruits. You'll
Yes.
catch people's eyes. Um, and at the time, I was being recruited by Boston University, Northeastern, St. Bonaventure. Coach
Hmm.
Cal at UMass wouldn't even recruit me. I mean, come on, Coach Cal wouldn't even recruit me. I'm right down the road from him.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so Coach Richardson just said, he liked some of the instincts that I had, and fortunately
Yes.
for me, it was a year where he had 8 or 9 scholarships because the championship team guys and the Final Four guys they were all leaving.
Right.
So he took a shot at it, and then so I'm looking at the situation. They just won a national championship.
Hmm.
They're the top of the world right now. So it was an easy decision for me to go. Now, when I got down there, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'd never seen guys wearing overalls. Just like nothing underneath,
Right. Not
just
for fashion
overalls.
anyway. Yeah, wearing
Yeah,
it, wearing it. Right.
I mean, just overalls. And so I always, but I get there and coach has some huge plate of ribs for me. And so all those, it was fun for me because everything was new. I'd never,
Cul-
seen it. And
Culture
they
change.
yeah, but it was a fun culture change. It's helpful if you're an athlete because you're walking into a family anyway. So
Right.
even if you go far away, you still got people there, a good support system.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Hey Pat, we're gonna come back after a while. We got to take a break here in a moment. But one of the things I want to have you think about this is why did the SEC rise to this level? We're going to come back and discuss that thing. But some interesting things. You played over in Denmark and France, and
Yes.
you have a communications degree. So basketball, communication. I mean, those two things melted, and here you are now on the SEC network as a men's basketball analyst. You must think I never been to heaven, but this is kind of close.
It's everything I dreamed of. I always wanted to do it, even in college. I saw how, I thought I'd have a 10-year NBA career, but, it didn't work out that way. But
Correct.
I'm exactly where, I always dreamed of being for sure.
Hey, that's great. Hey, we'll be right back after these messages with AP as we see it. Our special guest, Pat Bradley, SEC Network men's basketball analyst. I'm AP Stedham with Dr. Jason Northcutt of Robertsdale Dental Care.
AP, not only do we offer basic full-service dental treatment, but I also have developed a niche within the practice where I provide comprehensive dental implant services, such as single implants, bone grafting, and full mouth reconstruction. I've been highly trained in those disciplines to offer comfortable and long-lasting solutions to major dental problems.
Come by and see Dr. Jason Northcutt at Robertsdale Dental Care. And we're back with AP as we see it. Our very special guest, Pat Bradley, University of Arkansas, shooting guard extraordinaire 2 times for the SEC Network men's basketball analyst. And we're continuing this discussion about the men's basketball, new heights for the league. Pat, why do you think the SEC rose to this level? 9 teams, 8 teams in the Associated Press top 25.
Well, I think it goes back to, a few years when the commissioner, Greg Sankey, had said, okay, our football and a lot of other sports, baseball, track and field, you name it, we're all pretty dominant. Let's make sure that we figure out ways to get the basketball to where it can be like every other sport. So, he made sure that scheduling was correct. He made sure that the hiring of coaches was with the right kind of guys. And he worked with the university and presidents and
Mm-hmm.
for the league office, they hired somebody specifically for basketball. Right now, it's Garth Glissman who's sort of oversees it, and Garth comes from an NBA background, and so he can help these universities navigate the best way. Like I said, scheduling the right way to make sure that your resume is where it needs to be at the end of the year. And the other thing is too, the universities, the presidents and athletic directors in the league, they hire in the right guys. And when you hire the right coaches, you ignite a fan base. And then those great coaches, we have the best coaches in the country. Those great coaches attract the best players. And then guess what happens? The boosters, the alumni, they all get excited. And guess what they do?
Right.
They want to donate all their money, okay? And they want to build basketball cathedrals. And so you see it's worked, right? They've attracted the
Yes.
most talent to the league from a coaching standpoint, from a playing standpoint, and the trickle down effect is what you see now. And let me tell you something: the SEC was in the forefront of accepting the transfer portal and accepting NIL. And I'm telling you that the coaches being willing to say, yeah, okay, that's the game now. Let's play. Let's figure out how to do this the best way. That is going to keep the SEC in front of all the other conferences.
They'll keep them strong. Yeah, they accepted that application of those two things, the transfer portal and the NIL, so critical in all the sports now. Uh, Speaking of critical, Pat, what are some of the critical factors for a team to compete for a championship in the NCAA men's basketball tournament?
Well, I think for to be able to compete, we do talk about a lot about the guard play, and yes, that's so important. Just because they get the basketball in their hands the majority of time, so you need good
Yes.
decision making. And I'm talking about if you're a team that is maybe you're not a Final Four team, but
Yes.
you want to win a game or two games in the
Right.
tournament. You have to be able to, because the one factor with the NCAA tournament is, first of all, you might not know, who you're going to play. You only get a couple days to figure it out. Let's say if you're in the first four, I mean, you only got 2 days, right, to,
That's
to
it.
figure
Yes.
out how we're going to get ready. So you gotta. It helps to have a veteran team.
Right.
And the other thing too is you don't know. I mean, there's foul trouble. There's got. Can you weather the storm through a bad shooting night? So I think
Right.
it's critical to have guys who handle the ball, good decision makers. You got to have a good, strong veteran backcourt. Um, that's always the most important thing. And I do think, if you're talking about making a deep, deep run,
Right.
um, you have to have. Now the guards can get you just so far, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
have to make those deep runs. I'm talking Elite Eight, Final Four. You got to have some of those big guys in there that when you do have an off shooting night, which everybody will have,
Yes.
um, can you go and get it and stick it back? Can you win other ways, right? Without just having to have a good shoot night. So I think the teams that figure out how to win despite not having good shoot nights are also the teams that are going to be going deep. And we've got a few in the SEC. I mean, Auburn gets on the glass. Um, Alabama, they can get on the glass. Texas A&M, great offensive rebounding team, they can turn you over. So Tennessee, a great defensive team, they can turn you over, get on the glass without making one shot. I mean, Tennessee can win 40-41. We've seen it before, right? So
Yes. Yes. But
those. And the other thing is to go deep in the tourney too. You're going to be playing against so many different styles. You might play
yes.
against an up-tempo team. You may play a team that walks it up. Um, but that's when you talk about going to a Final Four. I mean, you've got to be really check the boxes in all those areas of the game.
Pat, speaking of other ways to win the basketball game, you were a three-point specialist. I mean, you set some records. I know at the time, I think most made and most attempts that was broken a few years after you, but you had success shooting that three-point shot. When you watch these teams, I just ask you from experience, let's say you had a bad first half percentage-wise, maybe below. What is it? You have to shoot about 33 to 35% to be effective from the three-point line. Is that the number? Is that the percentage? Something
I
like
would
that?
say, yeah. I mean, 35, and then when you get to 40%, that would be considered like the elite. I think we
Right.
have in our league now. I think Kobe Bryant might be like right about 45.
Yeah.
Caleb Gold right
Exceptional.
underneath that. Yeah.
Oh, so when you were taking those three-point shots, you had a bad first half. Maybe you charted this through your career. How many times did you have a good second half when you were having a bad first half from the three-point? Because I think that's a critical number.
Yeah.
Because Nate Oates, he's a mathematician. All these different coaches, they have the analytics department. I mean, to me, I'm thinking they all have that number. I've never asked the coach, but I would love to know that number. How many times your team shot, let's say, below that 33%, 25, 15, 20%, a low number. And then the second half, they came back to hit it just right.
Yeah. That's a great question. I'm gonna start tracking that from a team standpoint and from a
Right.
player standpoint. I would say this: as the game goes on, as a player, you start to figure out where the holes in the defense is going to be.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of games where, the first few minutes of the game, the guy who's guarding me, he's like, all right, I'm not going to let him get a shot off. I was fine. I was like, oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting in the corner, no problem. You don't got to worry about me. Look at me. I'm not going to hurt you. And then they forget, and then they forget.
Yes.
Then it's the second
Yes.
half. And we prided ourselves. First of all, I think if you want to be a great shooter, you have to be the best conditioned athlete on the floor. Right?
Yes.
They used to call me the marathon man, right? I mean, I just didn't stop running. So if you wanted to prevent me over the course of 40 minutes from getting shots off, you better make sure that you can run in circles and circles and circles. So I would say, to answer your question, that a lot of the better shooters would tend to settle into it and find more openings as the game goes on, even in the second half, despite maybe not getting many good looks or missing some in the first half. I would hope the good ones are like that.
That's right. It's pretty smart. We're in the last about 2.5 minutes, Pat. What is success for the SEC? All these teams in the top 25. There's 350 or 60 teams at that level, 8 or 9 in the top 25. I always said you have to have like 4 or 5 reach the Sweet 16 and at least one at the Final Four to be successful. Because all those games you win, that's nice. But we know basketball is a tournament sport.
Right. That's been a discussion every year for as long as I can remember. So it's to be able to go to the Sweet 16 is very important.
Yes.
Because now that whole week, people are talking about the talking about your teams.
Yes, another level. Yeah.
Another level. And to your point, yes, that Final Four is another example of where you got the stage as a conference, as a team for the whole week. I've always said, to me, as a New England Patriots fan, the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, even after a win, was better than the 10 months or whatever, 6 months after the Super Bowl, because everybody's all eyes on you, and I think that's important for a program. And so it is. I think the Sweet 16, and then of course the Final Four is.
Yeah.
And if you look at it though, like historically, we're looking at the numbers.
Yes.
Of how many 1 seeds end up going on to win a national championship. I mean, it's a pretty high number. So
pretty high number.
For us to be able to have 2 number 1 seeds, or maybe 3, depending on how everything shakes out.
Right.
Obviously, we know it's unprecedented.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. Hey, Pat, quickly, how can people connect with you? SEC Network, of course, and how social media you get on there as well.
Yeah, at Pat Bradley 22 on Twitter and at Pat Bradley 22 on Instagram. I think I get it. I don't always check my Instagram though. I never.
I hear it. Hey, from one of the best shooters, he was always ready to. He was born ready taking that 3-pointer. I think he was born ready. Pat Bradley, all SEC 2 times, University of Arkansas, SEC Network men's basketball analyst Pat Bradley. Thank you for being a part of AP as we see it, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Thanks, AP.
Let the games begin at Wind Creek Casino, where new players get a free play rebate of up to $1,000 based on their first day's play. Just stop by Player Services at any Alabama location and sign up for a rewards account to get all the details. Mention you heard this ad on the radio and give the code Kelly25 and we'll throw in a $25 free play bonus. That's KELLY 25. Don't miss out on our new player promise, exclusively from Wind Creek. Minimum $75 loss required for free play rebate. Get full details at windcreek.com or see Player Services.
And we're back with AP as we see it, and we'd like to thank our extraordinary guest, Pat Bradley, 2-time University of Arkansas guard, played under Nolan Richardson, Hall of Fame coach, and Pat set some records there from the 3-point line. He could really fire away from that corner, especially the deep in the corner. That was one of his best shots, I think. But Pat Bradley with the SEC Network men's basketball analyst, we want to thank him for his contributions and his analysis and observations about the SEC and college basketball. We'd like to thank our sponsors again, Greer's Market, 29 locations. That's Alabama, Florida, Mississippi. Lucy's Famous Recipes are online. Plus, she has a new book out. You can buy it at one of the locations and also online. Groceries to go, you can have those delivered to your home, your office, any venue. Remember, it's football, family, and friends, but now we have this NCAA basketball with these SEC teams on the men's and women's teams in the top 25. So I'm sure you're going to be having some parties in February and March and April for the NCAA tournament. So use that groceries to go if you can't make it down to one of the locations. Check out the weekly specials online. Those are, you can print those coupons and other things and get ready prior to your visit. And then also have the Mardi Gras specials. We know in this part of the country, Mardi Gras is huge, and people are always looking for things to buy from Greer's as well. They have the coloring contest monthly for all the children, and that's a lot of fun for them as well. And then you have the special occasions, the holidays, the birthdays, the anniversaries. Make sure you check out Greer's for all your food requirements, fresh produce, the dinner essentials, delicious food and snacks at unbeatable prices. And remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. We also would like to thank Wind Creek Casinos, 3 Alabama locations. That's Atmore, Montgomery, and Wetumpka. You could sign up at any of those locations to be a player, and then check out all the amenities at the various locations, the 3 locations, Atmore, Montgomery, Wetumpka, the dining, restaurants, the cinema. You can go to a matinee or go at nighttime. You have the spa. I love to go to the spa. It's a lot of fun. They have the pools and the saunas and everything, the bowling. They have live performances. They have the cooking school. They have different events at the amphitheater, the A-list concerts, and you have the hotel. So there's fun for everyone. So check out the Wind Creek Casino, the 3 locations in Alabama, Atmore, Montgomery, and Wetumpka. We just like to delve back to our first segment. We spoke about the college football playoff changes, and I, I'm going to embrace it. I'm not happy with some of the things that are being proposed with the automatic qualifiers, 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten, 2 from the ACC, 2 from the Big 12. And we have the Notre Dame, if they can be ranked 14th or above, and then somebody from the non-power forward group, the group of 5, they call it. So that's what it looks like it's going to happen. Probably 14 teams. That'll be, or 14 or 16. That'll be in 2026. That for that season, the 2025. I'm not sure if they're going to have the unanimous vote to change the seeding process where you rank the team, but then you seed them differently than you rank them because there's those 4 automatic qualifiers of the 4 best conferences. So I don't know if that's going to happen because if I'm in the ACC, the Big 12, or the other conferences, and that has to be unanimous vote in 2025, I don't think I'd make that change. Once 2026 comes along, we know that there's been the memorandum authorizing the SEC and the Big Ten to move forward with decisions and have some input and consultation from the other conferences. I just don't think that those conferences are going to be able to sway the Big Ten or the SEC in their decisions. So they're going to have the 4 automatic qualifiers from both those conferences and the Big Ten and the SEC, as I said. But the SEC, because the schedule within the conference could be unbalanced, I think that selection committee be the best avenue to determine the top, let's say 6 or 18th, and then come up with that top 4. And you have the 3 play the 6, the 4 play the 5 on the weekend that was normally reserved for the SEC championship game. So I think that's something good for the conference. And we made mention of the spring ball, the spring game. I'd still have some type of spring event, spring football event for your alumni and your fans to keep that connection, to build the excitement for your program. You get the media exposure. You get your fans and alumni watching some of the redshirt freshmen, the incoming freshmen that came in January, some of the transfers that came in January. I think I would still keep that to have that spring event. You get people on campus, they're buying shirts and merchandise, and you're promoting the team. You could have luncheons. You get a chance to maybe meet some new assistant coaches besides the players. There's many things that could happen to the benefit of your football program and your university, your college, if you have the spring football event. We're now going to switch to the men's basketball. We're going to check the Associated Press poll on the men's basketball side, the men's basketball poll, AP men's basketball poll. Week 17, we have, and that's released on Monday, the 24th of February this week. Auburn at number 1, Florida at number 3, Tennessee at number 5, Alabama at number 6, Texas A&M number 12, Missouri at number 14, Kentucky at number 17, Mississippi State at 24. We had others receiving votes. Ole Miss received 28 votes. Vandy received 2. So that's 8 teams in the top 25 for men's basketball. And they continue with this unprecedented historical season of being so successful and being ranked in the polls. SEC basketball, as Pat mentioned, a combination of the right person in charge. As we've always said, one person makes a difference. It's that leadership at the top. You're able to lure, acquire, and attract talent from across the country and the globe, actually, because we know that European players, players from other countries, they have studied the game, and they're usually pretty good shooters most of the time, if that's their specialty. They follow the best form of the American players they've learned by watching for years, and they've had these clinics. United States representatives are in these other countries, so we know that these other countries, they love basketball. It's a global sport, and it's bled into the SEC. All these good players as well. So that's 8 teams on the men's side in the top 25. Let's look at the women's side. We have Texas number 1, South Carolina number 6, LSU number 7, Tennessee number 11, Oklahoma number 13 on the women's basketball poll, the Associated Press women's basketball poll. Tennessee number 11, Oklahoma number 13, Kentucky number 15, Alabama at number 20. So that's 7 teams from the SEC on the women's side in the Associated Press poll. The SEC women's has always been very, very strong. It's had its moments through the history of the NCAA tournament, of course, many champions. And there's one other team that received some votes. Ole Miss received 4 votes. So both the men's and the women's basketball team, we're looking for them to get to the Sweet 16. I would say I'm looking at 4 or 5 on the men's side, get to the Sweet 16 to be considered success, and at least one team get to the Final Four. We know that right now could be 2 or 3 teams on the one line on the men's side. And on the women's side, you could have that as well. Like I say, 7 teams are ranked right now. The women, if they can get half of them to the Sweet 16, get somebody to the Final Four, I'll consider that success as well. But the proliferation of successful basketball teams in the SEC on the men's side, I think it's something that has taken some years. I think it started with the television. You had all the games that were being able to, they were watched across the country. You can recruit somebody in New York City or Los Angeles or different places across the country, and all their games will be on TV, so their family can really feel connected. Whereas years in the past, you can get those SEC games nationally, but now every game is on television. Same for the women; they recruit everywhere across North America and globally. So I think that's an advantage. When the SEC had their TV contracts, they up their level of exposure, and I think it's paid huge dividends with all these men's teams being so successful. And then they attracted the coaches; they paid them the salaries, some of the top in the country. And the different styles. I think the SEC was always known for being athletic, but they lacked in the skills. But I think some of the skills now have caught up to the athleticism, and that's why people are watching the SEC. They're attracted to the SEC. They're playing for the SEC, and I've always enjoyed watching the league going way back. But I think that the SEC has plenty of money to support the basketball, and they made a concerted effort. And now I think it's going to be a regular contributor in the Final Four, the Sweet 16, Final 8, moving forward, because they have the structure, they have the leadership, and that's the coaches. And one coach can make a difference, as we all know. They're able to have the transfer portal. You can beef up your team, as we've seen. Missouri has come alive again. They had the difficult season last year, but I think the SEC, I can't wait till the tournament, March Madness, the Final Four being in San Antonio. Oh, by the way, I'll cover that. And also, I just want to make mention our social media platforms as we get ready to end our show. Facebook, Instagram, X account, Spotify, YouTube channel, AP as we see it. Everything is broadcast now, video, and on all the radio stations in the region. You can check our social media platforms to find where those stations will air Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that's another edition of AP as we see it. And we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.